uh, when that I or the identity is dropped, like, does it come back again? Like when some old friend of yours, like shouts you when, like, on the street, or something from the past, and there's a sudden reflex reaction that happens for you, uh, in a way that old identity is back. Does that happen, or is that happens, but that is for no one, as you say?
These questions aren't really answerable because you stop looking at yourself in that timeline. So you stop looking at yourself as what I am yesterday and what I am tomorrow, and you stop. There's not an energy judging about what's happening, so it's just happening. So anger can arise or upset can arise, but it's no longer looked
Okay,
at in a time frame. But anything can happen. Who knows if the person comes back or not comes back? I mean, it's a bit of a bizarre idea anyway.
okay. So there is no recognition, or comparison. So there's no way to really have that judgment saying that the old Lisa is back or anything.
No.
Okay. Okay. Second question.
Yeah.
And I have your book, and I've kind of gone through it multiple times, like randomly.
Yeah.
And what I did not understand is aliveness. I mean, the way I always thought was aliveness was had to deal with, and you do clarify that in your book. But what I always thought is that aliveness has got to do something with the human body. I mean, if the human body is dead, there is no such thing as aliveness or beingness, right? I mean, if I'm dead, then
No,
but
it
what?
is. Everything is aliveness. So what dies when the body dies is the memories and the ideas and the habits of the body. But aliveness, the body is inside aliveness, but we think that the body is alive and that I am alive.
And okay, so you said the body comes and goes in aliveness.
Yeah.
So okay, so aliveness has got nothing to do with necessarily with the living.
No, it's just being used as a tool to feel through the body. But aliveness doesn't, or beingness has nothing to do with the body.
Can you repeat that?
Aliveness or beingness has nothing to do with the body.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I'm still not able to understand that. But
Um,
okay,
it's just the body. We think that the body's alive
yeah.
and that it dies when it stops moving, but the body never stops moving. It just stops moving in the way that we think it is, or we think of as alive, or we define as alive.
Oh, okay, okay. So when actually, so what you're saying is when there's actually death, then there's nobody who calls it death really. So that definition, even that recognition that this is death, is
It's
not
not
even
really
existing.
dead, it's just different.
It's just
But we
different.
see our aliveness and the human see as aliveness and being alive as the body moving in a particular way.
Mm-hmm.
And they see the absence of that movement as dead.
Mm. Okay. Okay.
So they see the body just laying there still and the heart and the lungs not working as dead. That's what we've defined as dead. But really, the body's now transferring and moving into something else. And aliveness never belonged to that body.
Okay.
Aliveness is everything. Just
Okay.
using the body in order to have a certain particular experience, the human experience.
Okay. Okay. I think I get that. Another, and actually there are a list of 7 more questions, so I don't want to like take a lot of time.
Oh,
But
it's fine, I don't mind.
okay, uh, so I'll skip the next question that kind of answers it. The other one that I have is, now I've seen, or what I heard is you referring to non-duality as a radical subject, or it's as a fascinating subject, but isn't that an ultimate truth in the sense, rather than just a subject, or isn't it? I mean, wouldn't it? I mean,
No,
does it
because there
deserve
can't be a
more?
truth. A truth is positive. So all belief systems and all political systems and religious systems are about believing something, and that's why they're so popular. even psychology or healing is all about taking on a positive belief and believing it to be true. And then people follow that and they take that as true. But non-duality isn't about that. It's not about taking on a new belief. It's the collapse of the idea that you are someone separate to life, that you are somebody in the body. And then that collapses and life becomes back to its original state, which is mystery. It's totally mysterious as to what this is and what's appearing and how it's appearing.
Okay. Yeah, I get that, but maybe it was a very trivial question. I was probably asking, is non-duality being referred to as just a subject? Doesn't it deserve a better or bigger word than just a subject?
What could we call it? A religion?
That would be interesting.
I don't know what to call it.
Yeah. No, that is fine. It was
because to call it the truth would be a lie. Yeah. That would be bigger than calling it a subject, I suppose.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So the next one that I have is it's said that experiences are temporary and transient, but people, for example, there are some people who get depressed and they stay depressed for a long time. So, I mean, when we say transient, is what kind of definition is that? Because it's not like it's a sensation that passes away, and depression is also an experience.
I don't know what you mean by transient. That this is all see-through. This is all invisible.
Transient, I mean, say, as they say in Buddhism, right? This too shall pass, or everything changes. But when I did but the reason I picked up depression is because one of the things where it stays for a long time, right? It does not pass. So even as an experience, it does not change. People say depressed whole of their life sometimes. So when we say everything changes, everything passes, sometimes things do not change at all. So how I'm not able to align these two thoughts.
They do also change. Like even if it takes a lifetime, it does change, and in every instant it's fresh again. That depression. But yeah, sometimes it can be a whole lifetime that someone stays depressed. But really, 80 years is nothing in the vastness of eternity.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. Okay, so the next one is when you say what it is what it is. I mean, it is what is happening, right? Or I forget that. Yeah. And what you also said in your book is that what has happened for the human being is that communication of words have become more important than what is happening. But thoughts and communication is also part of what is happening.
It's part of what's happening. But really, everything in every instant is a mystery. But we take what we hear to be a truth. And we always want a positive thing to be told. So if we haven't seen an object before, we always want to know its name because we want to be able to describe things and know things in language. And we do it with people's behavior. So if you didn't know someone and you were going to be introduced, you'd ask about them, you'd want to know a bit about them or what you think you could know about them. So you'll ask what they look like or their behavior, and it's easier for the person to take that on than to have nothing to imagine someone by.
Yeah.
So people always want to live in positive beliefs. Always.
Yeah. For example, if you get hurt, like just fall on the ground, the first thing, at least personally, first thing that comes to me is I want to blame something for that. I want an object to kind of direct my experience towards.
And to be able to describe and know what it is. So if you have an argument with someone, then you want to be able to think and reflect about that rather than it just to be a mystery. And rather than a car crash just to be a mystery, want to know all the details and to understand it. And there's nothing wrong with that in itself. Thinking isn't a bad thing, and it's interesting to be able to think about things. but this personal energy claims it to be a reality. That's the way it is. So if we find out that somebody's a nasty person, we just believe they're a nasty person, rather than that's just a description that came and went, and really everything's a mystery. We don't know what it is. The table's not a table, the chair's not a chair, the skin isn't white, it simply is. But the separate entity takes it as reality and takes the world as a reality, and the language of the human is so limited, it's always in opposites, it's always in two. I know white because I know black, I know good because I know bad, I know tall because I know small. So it's like a really limited language, but we see our whole world and ourselves through that description. And non-duality is a reminding that who you are isn't the person. Who you are is life itself, and life is totally invisible. It's nothing and it's everything. It's happening and it's not happening.
Okay. Yeah, I get that.
And it's really mysterious as to what life is and why it's creating.
Mm. Okay. The next one. Sorry,
like if we just sat here right now,
right.
People would think it's madness to there to just be a disappearance of this. They think I've got to keep up with Lisa, or I've got to be something, or I've got to follow something, rather than actually it can all just dissolve, and there's simply what is, and there's speaking in mystery, there's speaking as mystery. But the person's always trying to reflect, who am I, who are they, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Often after the conversation, I forgot I'm even talking with people. and speaking comes again, and oh yes. But we're always trying to structure what we know to make it safe, but it's that structure which makes it unsafe.
Right. Yeah, I mean, even I wouldn't say, I mean, that when I'm trying to understand all this, it's only because I have that understanding and I'm not ready to be in a position where I don't know anything, and that's probably what you're talking about. It's very hard for people to be in a position of not knowing.
Yeah, but I don't know if it's that you're ready or not ready. It's just simply at the moment, life is producing the illusion of self, and when it stops, it stops. And it's not even really that you're having an experience, but there seems to be the experience of someone having an experience.
Okay.
But basically, really, what the person wants to know is, how can I have the most happy life? That's really what the person wants. I don't know if it really cares about all this existential stuff. Like,
yeah, exactly. Because
just
because I see the fakeness. For example, like I see a tremendous difference between weekdays and weekends. Say when I'm not working, all these questions disappear. Or let's say I'm going on a vacation, I wouldn't talk about or think about non-duality. I would just look at the ocean or just enjoy.
Yeah.
I think it's in a way for me it has been a way to tackle the material world in a very easy way.
Yeah.
Easy solution.
Because it becomes really complicated, the material world, because the person now, the illusory self, has become complicated. The material world's become complicated, and lives have become very complicated, and there's lots of projections and ideas about everything. So it's kind of sometimes like a battlefield, and really I don't know if people really are interested in true non-duality. I think they're just trying to live in a world where all the bodies have different ideas about things, and your body has different ideas about things, and it has to try and match up with everything else. And really, the essence that everybody feels is a bit of a mystery and not knowing. But they're living in a society where you have to know and you have to be something.
Yeah. I mean, for me, at least for a lot of time, I was wanting to have this knowledge to kind of have something to say in an argument sometimes. Oh, this is all nothing, okay. But anyways, I can never win that argument. It's not experiential at all. And this is probably the last question is, let me see. Yeah, I have another question. No, this is quoting from what people sometimes say. Uh, they say, they say like suffering happens when you like believe in your thoughts, right?
It's not that you believe in them, it's that that energy's claiming them to be a reality, rather than they just come and go and mean nothing and are nothing and just to used in practical terms. Something claims them and says this is reality. That person's definitely an asshole, or that person's definitely better than me, or this is not nice, or I don't like this. And that's what the problem is. It's not so much the thoughts in themselves or the emotions in themselves, it's this energy that's always claiming it. Me, 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 me. And it gets more and more complicated.
Yeah, and what I was actually trying to point out to is, I mean, at least I feel that's a catch when people say, or some other teachers say, uh, suffering happens when you believe in your thoughts. But right now, I have to believe what the other teacher is saying in order
Yeah.
to kind of believe that
Yeah.
suffering. Yeah,
It's another thought that's been taken on.
yeah. So you have to, in order to disregard one belief, you have to take on another one.
Yeah.
So
Well, eventually, non-duality is really about letting it all go. Like
yeah,
all the spiritual ideas.
yeah,
Like I see a lot of the spiritual ideas as madness.
mm,
Like ones that we take as normal. But I see it's crazy too. Like any idea that you're investigating non-duality or it's making you happier or unhappier. It
yeah,
simply is happening, and it's not any of those descriptions. It doesn't mean that there can't be a talking about it, but it means nothing and goes no one. Someone says, "What are you doing?" "Oh, I'm investigating non-duality," and there's a description of it, but really nothing means anything. It's simply happening, and it's all question mark.
yeah. I mean, the only evidence I have experience of what you're saying is any idea that I use, it does not last for more than a day. I
Yeah,
mean, the next day I feel what was that I was doing, but I'll grab onto another idea, and that will seem interesting to me. But I know nothing works
yeah.
as a tool in
As
the
an
end.
idea, yeah,
Yeah. Okay. And the last question is.
yeah,
I think somebody did ask you a similar question, but the question is if you knew about this state of experience that you're living right now, and before awakening, if somebody asked you now that would you, what I'm trying to say is, would you have chosen this if there was a choice? In the
yes,
sense, when you were seeking, would you
yes.
have gone for this?
If I knew what it was, yes. I
Yeah,
didn't at the time. I didn't know what awakening was. I thought it was pleasure, but yes, it's freedom.
because some
It's
people
very
like,
hard living as a separate person.
oh, okay,
It's hard living believing that you're real
okay. The
and
only,
believing that others are real as well, and that others have offended you or hurt you.
yeah,
I mean, there's still life has its issues, like still money has to be earned and life has to be lived, but it's no longer anyone doing it. It's a happening, and you're not in conflict with it anymore. It just happens.
yeah.
There's not something that's in conflict with it, so nothing lasts. Just comes and goes, comes and goes.
Much lighter, I guess.
Sorry?
It must be much lighter or not as heavy as a.
It's just
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it's so um, uh, incredibly easy. It's
mm,
the person that makes it complicated. I mean, if you look at animals, this is so obvious. Like my dog is so simple: eating time, toilet time, crying time if she's crying, or like
yeah,
crying like or barking time. It just is what it is. Whereas the human has so many hallucinations it lives in. Like
but
if I tell her off, she doesn't sit in the corner and ponder what an asshole I am for the next 10 years. And I've ruined her life because I did all these things to her. There's just sadness and then it's gone.
yeah. But what if the dog had to live a life of a person, like
I
going doing a job and
No,
wanting to?
that's easy. That's easy too. The hard bit of the person is the hallucinations that the human has because of its complicated thinking. And its biggest hallucination is I am somebody, they are somebody, and we act independently. And it's a drug. It's such a drug for the human, and so it's not complicated. Life is movements between pleasures and pains, although in another way it's not. They're just ideas as well. So life has its trials, and like Khaleesi still has fights with dogs at the dog park, or or people. Well, when we were in Thailand, people used to beat her, because she was a street dog. So life has its trials, but if you're not taking it personally, then it simply happens, and it's free to happen. And the nature of life is to be free, for it to appear and disappear as if it never happened. Like the bird flying through the sky, it never leaves a trace. The same with life. It's invisible. But when there's this person with hallucinations, it keeps dreaming while the body is awake all these other dynamics.
Right.
It makes it so complicated, like they did this to me, or I'm not good enough, or why do I have a life like this, or I'm better than that person, who do they think they are, I'm so much better. And it's happening on a thought and emotional level, and it's just taken to be truth, that reality, but it's got no truth on anything. Life simply is. It's a happening.
Okay. But intellectually, sometimes I wonder, like, let's just say there are 10 people in a room, all of them are awakened, but there's only enough food for 9 people, and would there be? I mean, wouldn't there be a struggle for individual, or at least at a?
Yeah, the body's set up to survive. Yeah.
But wouldn't that person, even in that awakened person, would think that, okay, I have got to compete in order to survive, and wouldn't that give rise to a sense of separateness? Or
No, that's just survival. It doesn't. It's a different thing. It's not taken. It's just not seen through the veil of I've got to survive.
Okay.
Most humans look through that veil as if it's a reality. When that veil's no longer there, there's still the impulses and thoughts, but life isn't seen like that. Life isn't caged anymore.
Okay.
But that's gonna each body is gonna lose everything it's got. So enlightened people don't, if there is such a thing, they don't escape the ups and downs of life. Like everything that Lisa gains will also be lost, just like every other body. All the money, the house, the family, the kids, if I were to have some, the dog, everything goes. The image, the non-image, the like and love of others, the hate and dislike of others, all of it comes and goes, comes and goes. This world, like it's not that's escaped, it's just there's nothing that takes it personally anymore and thinks it's happening to me. It simply is as it is, and there's no division between you and the outside. There isn't an inside or outside anymore, which makes it all free again to express.
So if there's no otherness, then in the case, do you personally, or do you find some people irritating and you always find them irritating, or how is that experience?
That's just irritation arising, but it's not me. The same with my dog. When she's in the dog park, she will have certain dogs that there's a bonding with and certain dogs that aren't. I personally can't. I don't really enjoy people that talk and talk and talk non-stop and don't even breathe for like an hour. Like I find that like and actually I couldn't take it for that long anymore. I would say something after 5 minutes. But so that's my dislike in humans is chatterboxes, ones that are non-stop talkers, and so there will always be a movement away from them. But I don't dislike or hate them. It's just that's a functioning happening in the body. Just like some bodies like the heat, some bodies like the cool, some bodies love chatterboxes, some bodies. But yes, this body has preference and has all emotions, but it's not mine. Every emotion has jealousy, irritation, love, anger, joy, happiness, all emotions, but nothing claims it anymore, so it just comes and goes.
So in a way speaking, it's almost like it's a biological function, feeling irritation and feeling happy or feeling...
Yeah. Of course.
wanting to read certain books, not wanting to read certain.
Yeah. But the seeker, the spiritual seeker, is trying to avoid all that. It wants this. It wants just pleasure.
Yeah.
Permanent pleasure.
Yeah.
And so it will look forever for this permanent state of pleasure. Which is okay, it can look, there's fun in looking, but it will never get there. There's no permanent state, there's simply what is.
Yeah. And it's so hard to accept that it's simply what is. Even
Yeah.
after, one would think that after having this conversation, I would think that, okay, it's easy to accept what is, but it is not.
No, but the person couldn't. It's like a chipping away of that energy, which is rejecting it. The person couldn't. Otherwise, you'd be sitting there going, I must accept this, I must accept this. And then you've got an idea of what acceptance looks like and what accepting would look like. Because it doesn't mean that losing your temper doesn't happen. That's not exactly what we'd imagine to be accepting. Anything can happen. It's just the identification is no longer with that irritation. It simply is happening in boundlessness, and it's free to express. If it's a big explosive energy, it's free to express.
Okay. Yeah, this was really nice. Thank you for answering all the
My
questions.
pleasure. Nice to speak with you again.
Nice to speak to you. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.